In this video, we will discuss how to properly cite sources in an academic paper and go over some other tips for academic writing. At the most basic level, we use citations to avoid accusations of plagiarism. By citing sources, we're both crediting the people who generated an idea and helping to set off their work from our own. That's also why failing to properly cite sources can give rise to academic integrity concerns. A second reason to cite sources is that it gives the reader a chance to locate the source information. If you make a claim about a fact, enabling the reader to check that fact both ensures that your statements are true and increases your credibility with the reader. Third, properly cited sources are attractive and provide a patina of professionalism to a paper. In economics, we typically use the citation guidelines from the American Psychological Association, also known as the APA. So how do we actually cite other people's work in practice? For the standard citation, we use the author's last name and the publication year. Depending on how we want to use the citation, we either put both the author's name and year in parentheses or just the year. In this first example, we're using an in-text citation style in which we name the authors, Grissom, Nicholson, Crowdy, and Harrington, as part of the sentence. So we need to include the author's, so we don't need to include the author's name. So how do we actually cite other people's work in practice? For the standard citations, we use the author's last name and the publication year. Depending on how we want to use the citation, we either put both the author's name and the year in parentheses or just the year. In this first example, we're using an in-text citation style in which we name the authors, Grissom, Nicholson, Crowdy, and Harrington, as part of the sentence and then put the publication year in parentheses. In our second example, we are not naming the author as part of the sentence, so we need to include the author's name in the parenthetical. One way to decide if you got it right is to read the sentence without the terms in parentheses and see if it still makes sense. You'll notice that we didn't include the title or page numbers in these citations, and that's part of the APA style. You would include page numbers if we had a quotation, but that's the only reason or circumstance in which we would include page numbers as part of a citation. Now, in the case of, for example, two authors, we would name both authors on every use of the citation. With 3 to 5 authors, we're going to name all authors that first time, so Grissom, Nicholson, Crowdy, and Harrington, and then afterwards, we would name it as first author and then et al, so it would be Grissom et al. Et al here is an abbreviation for the Latin term et alia, which means and others. And while we're discussing papers and citations, each paper is a singular noun, so technically this first statement is incorrect. It should be found, not find, but I won't be enforcing that rule in this class. Now let's look at two statements and check if they are correctly citing their sources. In this first instance, the sentence does not include any indication of the year of publication or that the paper was done with co-authors. In the correct sentence, we use Fletcher et al., so this would be the second or later reference, and the year is in parentheses. In the second statement, the writer did include the year, but did so incorrectly. Rather than saying, research done by Chalupka and Warner in 2000, the sentence should read, Chalupka and Warner, and then in parentheses, the year 2000, found that young adults were more responsive to the price elasticity of cigarettes. Now that we have citations that tell us the author and year, we need to create a list where the reader can find these sources. We do that using a reference list, also sometimes called a bibliography. This list will appear at the end of the paper, before any tables and figures, if you choose to put those at the end. It will include all cited sources, so every in-text citation is going to have a corresponding entry in the reference list. Under the APA style guide, it will be in alphabetical order, and it's going to start on a new page labeled References. It will identify each type of source, since that affects exactly how the reference needs to be written, and all lines after the first line will be indented like this example here. Now, this is a lot, and I have trouble keeping track of all these citation rules myself. So let's let the computer keep track of it and do the work for us. I use, and I would encourage you to use Zotero to manage your citations, references, and bibliographies. You can download Zotero from www.zotero.org and then add your sources to the app. The app also includes plugins for Word and Google Docs so that you can insert citations as you go, and it will create and update a reference list or bibliography as you go as well. So now let's turn to some tips for writing. First tip, use a personal pronoun. That is, I made these slides. And you want to use the active voice. So again, I made these slides, not these slides were made. Be concise and use fewer words whenever possible. Don't be too casual or dramatic in your writing. Make sure that every sentence is grammatically correct. So let's check for grammar and spelling. And I cannot emphasize enough, proofread, proofread, proofread your work. Fortunately, you don't have to do this by yourself. We can let AI tools help you with writing. Both Grammarly and Microsoft Editor, which is built into Microsoft Word, include high-quality grammar and spelling checkers, and I encourage you to use those tools. You can also use tools like ChatGPT to help refine and clean up your writing. I sometimes will write a first draft or a dump draft, and then put it into ChatGPT and ask it to help clean up that draft before I keep going and editing after that. Good luck with your writing.